The city was burning. Black smoke climbed into the sky, turning the daylight into a dull gray. Explosions echoed between tall, broken towers, and the streets were filled with rubble. Captain Elias ran through the ruins with his squad, his breathing heavy inside the helmet. The war had lasted for years, and now the humans were pressing deeper into alien territory. But victory did not feel like victory. Every step forward only showed more destruction, more fire, and more cries from those who were caught between the armies. Elias was a soldier, hardened by battles, but his eyes still searched every corner with caution. His men followed close behind, weapons ready. Their mission was simple: secure the street, push through the enemy defenses, and clear the path for the next wave. But war was never simple. The ground shook as another blast hit nearby. The squad ducked for cover, fragments of stone falling around them. Elias pressed against a wall and raised his hand to signal his men forward. He was about to move when a strange sound cut through the noise, a cry. It was not the scream of a soldier or the shout of an order. It was soft, high, and filled with fear, a child's cry. Elias froze. His men looked at him with confusion, but he had already heard it. He turned his head, scanning the collapsed buildings to the left. The cry came again, weak and desperate. Without waiting, he motioned his men to hold position and ran toward the sound. "Captain, wait!" one of his soldiers called, but Elias did not stop. He climbed over fallen stone, his boots crunching glass, until he reached what had once been a home. The walls were cracked, the roof half gone, and inside the shadows moved. Elias stepped carefully, his weapon raised, but then he saw it. There, between two broken beams, was a small figure. A child. It was not human. Its skin was pale blue, with faint glowing patterns across its arms. Its large black eyes were wet with tears, and its small body trembled as dust fell from above. It was one of the enemy's children. For a moment, Elias stood still. The war had painted the aliens as monsters, but here, before him, was only a frightened child. The child's voice broke again, crying for someone who was not there. Elias lowered his weapon slowly. He knelt, setting it aside, and reached out a hand. "It's okay," he said softly, though he knew the child might not understand his words. His tone was gentle, his movements slow. The child looked at him with wide eyes. It hesitated, then tried to move, but a heavy stone beam blocked its legs. Elias's chest tightened. The child was trapped. He set his hands on the beam and pushed, his muscles straining. The stone did not move at first, but Elias pressed harder, groaning until it shifted enough to free the child. The small alien scrambled out, stumbling into his arms. Elias caught it, holding the child against his chest. The little body shook, but it clung to him tightly, its tiny hands gripping his armor. Before he could speak again, another explosion roared outside. The wall cracked and debris fell. Elias turned, shielding the child with his body as stone rained down. He pressed against the ground, wrapping his arms around the child, feeling the heavy impact against his back. Pain shot through him, but he did not move. He would not let the child be crushed. Dust filled the air, choking him. He coughed, struggling to breathe, but kept his grip firm. When the shaking stopped, Elias opened his eyes. He was pinned under part of the wall, his legs trapped. The weight pressed down hard, and he knew he could not move on his own. The child whimpered, its small fingers touching his face. Elias forced a smile. "You're safe," he whispered, even as his own situation grew worse. Shouts echoed outside. His squad was calling his name, searching for him. But another sound mixed with theirs. Deep, guttural voices, the language of the enemy. Elias realized the battle was still raging around them. If either side found him now, what would they see? A human soldier holding an alien child, his earpiece crackled. "Captain Elias, respond." "I'm here," he answered with a strained voice. "Trapped in a collapsed building. I have a civilian with me." There was silence for a moment on the line, then his lieutenant's confused reply. "A civilian? You mean one of them?" "Yes," Elias said firmly. "A child. Innocent." "Captain, orders are clear on—" "I don't care about orders right now," Elias snapped, though his tone was calm. "This child stays with me." The argument cut short as shadows appeared at the doorway. Elias tightened his hold on the child, raising his head. Alien soldiers entered, their armor dark and their weapons glowing. They froze when they saw him, their black eyes narrowing. The child in Elias's arms cried out in their tongue, reaching toward the soldiers. The aliens hesitated, their weapons lowering slightly. Elias knew what they saw. A human soldier bleeding and pinned, yet protecting their young one with his own body. One alien muttered something to the others. Elias could not understand, but he saw doubt on their faces. The child's tiny hands clutched at Elias's chest, refusing to let go. Then another explosion shook the ground, closer this time. Both human and alien voices shouted in the distance, their battle pulling nearer. The alien soldiers looked at one another, then at Elias before retreating back into the smoke. They did not fire. They left him alive. Elias exhaled, relief and confusion mixing inside him. He turned his eyes back to the child. "It's okay," he said again, though his body ached and his legs burned with pain. "I've got you." Minutes later, his squad finally reached him. They dragged away the rubble, freeing his legs, and helped him up. But when they saw the child still clinging to him, their expressions hardened. "Captain, what are you doing with that thing?" One soldier asked sharply. "It's not a thing," Elias replied coldly. "It's a child." The squad exchanged uneasy looks. Some wanted to pull the child away, but the little alien cried louder, burying its face against Elias. He shook his head. "It stays with me," Elias said. His voice left no room for argument. The squad leader frowned, but he obeyed. They moved out quickly, carrying their wounded captain and his unexpected burden back to base. As they left the ruined city, whispers followed them. Soldiers from both sides had seen what happened. Word spread quickly. A human captain had thrown himself over an alien child, shielding it with his own body. In the smoke and fire of war, a single act of compassion had been witnessed by many. The military base smelled of metal, oil, and smoke. The sounds of engines, shouts of orders, and clanging tools filled the air. Soldiers moved quickly through the halls carrying weapons and gear, their boots striking against the steel floors. But in the middle of all this warlike noise, Captain Elias walked slowly, his body aching, his armor scratched, and a small alien child still clinging to him. The child's glowing eyes darted around nervously. Every human soldier they passed stared, whispering to one another. Some pointed, others scowled. The sight was strange. A decorated human officer carrying the child of their enemy, not as a prisoner, but as if it was his own. Elias ignored the looks. His mind was set. The child had no weapon, no guilt in the war. It was innocent. He had sworn to protect it. When he reached the medical wing, the nurses rushed forward to treat his injuries. But as they reached for the child, the little one screamed and clung to Elias's chest, refusing to let go. Elias winced at the sound. "It's all right," he told the nurses. "Don't force it, just let the child stay with me." The staff hesitated. They wanted to help, but they also feared the alien. Its blue skin, the glowing lines across its arms, the strange shape of its eyes. It reminded them of the enemy who had killed many of their friends. Still, Elias's tone was firm. So they backed away and focused on cleaning his wounds while the child stayed curled against him. When his legs were bandaged and his breathing easier, Elias was called to the command room. Inside, the air was tense. High-ranking officers stood around a table covered with maps and glowing screens. The general, an older man with sharp eyes, glared as Elias entered with the child still in his arms. "Captain Elias," the general said, his voice cold. "Explain yourself." Elias stood tall, though fatigue weighed on him. "I found the child trapped in rubble. I could not leave it to die," one colonel scoffed. "You risked your squad, disobeyed orders, and nearly got yourself killed for that?" He jabbed a finger at the child. The child flinched, pressing closer to Elias. Elias's jaw tightened. "It's a child, sir, not a soldier. Not the enemy." "It is the enemy," another officer snapped. "Its kind slaughtered thousands of our people. It will grow into one of them." Elias shook his head. His voice was calm, but his words cut through the room. "Then maybe if we show mercy, it will grow into something different." Silence followed. The officers shifted uncomfortably, some glaring, some thoughtful. The general's eyes narrowed as he studied Elias. Finally, he spoke. "You've caused a storm, Captain. Word of your act has spread. Soldiers whisper about it. Some say you showed weakness. Others say you showed humanity. Do you understand the weight of what you've done?" Elias nodded. "Yes, sir. And I stand by it." The general leaned forward. "Then you will keep that child under your responsibility. If anything happens, if it becomes a danger, you will answer for it." "I accept," Elias said without hesitation. The meeting ended, but tension lingered. Elias left with the child, who finally relaxed once they were out of the cold stairs. The rumors days passed. The base buzzed with rumors. Some soldiers mocked Elias behind his back, calling him Alien's nurse or the soft captain. Others avoided him entirely. But a few, especially the younger recruits, looked at him with something like respect. One night, Elias sat in his quarters. The child lay curled on his bunk, wrapped in a blanket. Its breathing was soft and steady, the faint glow on its skin pulsing gently like the rhythm of a heartbeat. Elias watched for a long time, thinking about his own younger sister back home on Earth. She had once clung to him the same way when storms frightened her. He whispered to himself, "No child deserves war." But outside his quarters, the war continued. Reports came daily, battles won, cities lost, soldiers dead. And with each report, anger grew among the humans. They wanted revenge. They wanted the aliens destroyed. Elias knew that his choice made him stand out, and not in a good way. The other side, far away, in the alien command ship, the story had also spread. Scouts and soldiers who had seen the human captain's act reported to their leaders. At first, many thought it was a trick. But the reports were consistent. The human had shielded an alien child with his own body, even against his own army's orders. And when the mother of that child heard the report, she did not believe it. She was no ordinary soldier. She was Commander Sailora, one of the most feared leaders of her people. Tall, fierce, and unyielding, she had led countless victories against the humans. Her name was whispered like a storm. But when she saw the recording, blurry footage from a soldier's visor showing her child clinging to the human, her heart stopped. She recognized the glowing patterns on the child's arms. It was hers. Her child had been lost during the chaos of the city's fall. She had feared the worst. Yet here, impossibly, the child lived, saved not by her people but by the enemy. Salira's mind battled with itself. The human should have killed the child or used it as a hostage, yet he had not. Why? What game was he playing? She slammed her fist against the table, cracking the metal. "Bring me this human," she ordered. Her officers looked at one another nervously. "Commander, he is deep within their lines. To reach him..." "Then prepare the envoys," she said sharply. "I will go myself," the officers gasped. Their commander walking into enemy territory? It was unthinkable. But Salira's tone allowed no argument. The bond back at the human base, Elias began to notice changes in the child. At first it had clung to him out of fear, but now it started to follow him with trust. When he ate, it mimicked him. When he spoke softly, it tilted its head as if listening, even without understanding the words. Sometimes it reached out to touch his hand, its small fingers tracing the scars on his skin. Elias felt something he had not felt in a long time. Peace. Amid all the war, this little being reminded him that kindness still mattered. One evening, a group of soldiers confronted him in the mess hall. "Captain," one said with a sneer, "why don't you hand that thing over? Maybe we can trade it for our prisoners, might even win the war faster." Elias's eyes hardened. He stood towering over the man. "This child is not a bargaining chip. Not while I'm alive." The soldier backed down, muttering under his breath. But the moment spread, adding more fire to the rumors. Some soldiers now whispered that Elias was cursed, that he had chosen the enemy over his own people. Elias ignored them. His heart told him he was right. The arrival the next morning, alarms blared across the base. Not an attack, an envoy. An alien delegation had approached under a white flag. It was the first time such a thing had happened in years of war. Elias was summoned at once. He walked into the negotiation chamber, the child still in his arms, and froze. Standing across the room was Commander Salira herself. Her presence filled the chamber like thunder. Her tall form was wrapped in armor marked with the symbols of her victories. Her black eyes burned as they fixed on Elias. The child's head shot up. Its eyes lit, and it cried out a word in the alien tongue, a single word full of joy and relief. "Mother." Elias's breath caught. His arms tightened around the child instinctively. And in that instant he understood who stood before him. The alien mother, the commander of their enemies, the one whose wrath had destroyed entire battalions. She had come not for war but for her child. The negotiation chamber was quiet, too quiet for a place that had seen years of war. Long tables separated the humans on one side and the aliens on the other. Armed guards stood by the walls, their hands close to their weapons. their eyes sharp and ready. Everyone in the room understood the danger. One mistake, one wrong move, and the fragile silence could shatter into bloodshed. Captain Elias entered slowly, carrying the child in his arms. His legs still ached from his wounds, but his steps were steady. The child's small hands gripped his uniform, and its glowing eyes darted nervously between the two groups. Then Elias saw her. Commander Celira stood at the far end of the chamber. Her presence was overwhelming. She was tall and strong, her armor dark with the marks of war, her black eyes sharp and unblinking. Her face was cold, carved by years of command. Yet there was something else hiding beneath the steel of her gaze. The moment the child spotted her, it cried out in joy. The alien word was unfamiliar to the humans, but the meaning was clear. It was a call from child to mother. Celira's rigid posture broke for just a heartbeat. Her eyes widened, her lips parted, and the cold mask she wore cracked as raw emotion poured through. She took one step forward, her voice trembling as she spoke in her tongue. The child reached toward her, but instead of rushing to take it, Celira froze. Her gaze locked on Elias, the human holding her child. The first meeting, Elias tightened his hold, his instincts rising. This was no ordinary enemy soldier. This was the commander whose name haunted every battlefield report. He could feel the eyes of his own generals behind him, waiting to see what he would do. For a long silence, human and alien locked eyes. Finally, Celira spoke again, this time in broken human language. Her voice was deep, steady, but heavy with emotion. "You saved my child." Elias nodded once. "Yes." Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" Elias met her gaze without fear. "Because no child deserves to die." The words hung in the air. The humans behind Elias shifted uneasily, as if embarrassed by his answer. The aliens across the table muttered in their own tongue. But Celira stood still, studying him, as if trying to see into his soul. The child squirmed in Elias's arms, reaching again toward its mother. Celira's hands twitched as if she longed to take the child back, yet she held herself in place. "You protect with your body," she said slowly. "Even when walls fall, even when fire burns. Why?" Elias hesitated, then spoke simply. "Because it was the right thing to do." Celira's eyes flickered. She had spent her life in war, where right and wrong were decided by strength and victory. To hear such plain words unsettled her. Tension in the room. The human general leaned forward. "Commander, we allowed this meeting under strict rules. Speak your terms or we end this farce." Celira's gaze snapped to him sharp as a blade. "My terms are simple. The human who saved my child will come with me." The room exploded with noise. The human officers shouted in outrage, pounding the table. "Absurd. Unthinkable. He is one of ours." Elias stood frozen. "Come with her?" What did that mean? Celira raised her hand, silencing even her own guards. "By our law, one who saves blood is bound to blood."
"He has claim to my family."
"He is no longer only human soldier. He is protector. He belongs with us." The chamber shook with the weight of her words. Even her alien officers looked shocked. But none dared oppose her. The human general slammed his fist down. "Outrageous. You expect us to hand over a decorated officer? He is not your property." Celira's eyes flashed. "He saved what is most precious. By honor he is tied. If you refuse, then this war will not end until your cities burn." Gasps filled the room. Her threat was not empty. Everyone knew the strength of her forces, the way her campaigns had crushed human strongholds before. Elias felt every gaze in the room turn toward him. He looked at the child in his arms. The small alien had stopped crying now, comforted by his heartbeat. Then he looked at Celira. Her fierce eyes held a storm of emotions: pride, fear, respect, and something else he could not yet name. Elias speaks. Elias drew in a deep breath. He knew this was dangerous, but silence would be worse. He raised his voice. "I don't belong to anyone," he said. "Not to you, not to them. I made my choice to protect a child. That's all." The human general shot him a warning glare, but Elias ignored it. Celira tilted her head, studying him again. "You speak with truth. You do not fear me." "I don't fear mothers," Elias said simply. "Only war." The chamber fell into silence again. The words hit both sides harder than a weapon. The child's choice at that moment. The child wriggled from Elias's arms and toddled toward Celira. The guard stiffened, but Elias did not stop it. He watched as the little alien stumbled forward and reached its mother. Selira knelt, her armor creaking, and gathered the child into her arms. For the first time in years, her hard face softened. She held the child close, her eyes closing as relief washed over her. But when she opened them again, her gaze was still fixed on Elias. The child tugged at her hand, pointing back at him. It babbled in its own tongue, words too quick to follow, but the meaning was clear. It did not want to leave him behind. Elias's chest tightened. The child's trust, its innocence, was something pure amid all the hate of war. An uneasy agreement. The human general finally stood. Enough of this madness. The captain stays with us. You got your child back. Take that and leave. But Selira rose slowly, her child in her arms. No, this human is bound by blood debt. If you keep him, then my armies will march again. The tension was unbearable. Soldiers on both sides reached for their weapons. One wrong move could ignite the room into chaos. Then Elias raised his hand. Stop. Both sides froze, stunned that he would dare interrupt. He took a step forward, his eyes calm. If my being here is the cause of more war, then I will go. Not as property, not as prisoner, but as myself. If that can save lives, I will do it. The human officers erupted. Captain, you can't. This is treason! But Selira's eyes widened in surprise. She had expected resistance, not willingness. For the first time, she looked almost unsure. You would come, she said slowly, to enemy walls. By choice? Elias nodded. If it means the child stays safe, yes. The room trembled with the weight of his words. The mother's claim Selira straightened, holding her child close. She looked at Elias with something like respect but also possession. Then hear me, humans, she said, her voice thundering. From this day, this man is claimed. He is protector of my blood. He is under my shield. Touch him, and you declare war on me. Her declaration echoed through the chamber. The human general's face darkened with fury, but even he hesitated. He saw the fire in her eyes, the way her guards stood ready to die for her word. To strike now would doom them all. Elias stood in the center, caught between two worlds. One side saw him as a traitor, the other as a protector. He had not asked for this, yet his choice on the battlefield had bound him to a future he could not yet see. The sun rose slowly over the distant horizon, casting long shadows across the human base. Smoke from burned buildings still lingered in the air, mixing with the smell of metal and dust. For most soldiers, it was another day of routine. Check weapons, patrol perimeters, wait for orders. But for Captain Elias, nothing was routine anymore. Since the arrival of Commander Selira and the child, his life had changed in ways he could not have imagined. He had been hailed as a hero for saving a child, but that same act now made him a source of tension, both among humans and aliens. Every step he took carried weight. Every decision mattered. He walked down the base's corridor, the small alien child walking beside him, trying to imitate his steps. Its glowing patterns flickered softly, like tiny lights reflecting the morning sun. Elias glanced down at it and smiled faintly. Despite everything, this little creature brought a strange sense of peace. But that peace was fragile. Human doubt. The officers had gathered again. They had convened a meeting, this time not to scold, but to debate Elias's future. Captain Elias, the general began, his tone sharp. Your actions are celebrated by some, but questioned by many. Our soldiers are confused. Some say you risked the mission for sentiment. Others say you made a mistake letting the alien commander leave with her child. Explain yourself. Elias stood tall, though fatigue weighed heavily on his shoulders. I made the choice to protect a child. Nothing more, nothing less. My actions saved a life, and by doing so, I may have prevented further bloodshed. Prevented bloodshed? One officer scoffed. By showing mercy to the enemy? How do we know it will not be used against us? I don't know, Elias admitted calmly. But if I act only out of fear or revenge, I lose what makes me human. And I will not do that. Not now, not ever, murmurs spread across the room. Some officers nodded in silent agreement, but many others remained unconvinced. Elias's words had planted seeds of doubt, but also of respect. Alien presence. Meanwhile, Commander Selira had returned to her own lines, taking the child with her. But she did not return to war immediately. Instead, she began studying this human, the one who had risked everything for her offspring. She had expected fear or weakness, but instead, she saw courage and compassion. traits she had never thought humans possessed in such measure. Reports from scouts came daily, describing Elias's care for the child, how he fed it, how he protected it from curiosity or hostility, even among his own soldiers. Sailora found herself intrigued. The human had acted without thought of reward, without orders, without fear for himself. She considered sending an envoy to observe him more closely. But she knew, any direct approach would anger her own troops. Humans would misinterpret her actions. She needed another way, and so from a distance she began watching. Learning trust back at the human base, Elias worked to integrate the child into a safe routine. He taught it simple gestures, tried to communicate through basic signs, and even shared small meals. The child was intelligent, quickly picking up patterns and behaviors. Elias marveled at how fast it learned. Other soldiers were less patient. Some refused to approach the child, whispering fears about its alien nature. Others mocked Elias for wasting his time. But a few, curious and young, began to watch him. They saw the bond forming, saw the child's trust in him, and some started to wonder if maybe this act of mercy had a purpose beyond sentiment. One evening, as Elias cleaned his weapon near the training grounds, a young soldier approached quietly. "Captain, I don't understand," the soldier said. "Why risk everything for an alien child?" Elias looked at him, then down at the little one playing nearby. The soldier's words were sharp but not cruel, more a reflection of confusion. "Because it is right," Elias said simply. "Sometimes right and easy are not the same. And if I do what is right, even for one life, then maybe I change something in the world. Maybe it teaches someone else to do the same." The young soldier nodded slowly. I think I understand." Elias smiled faintly, though exhaustion weighed on him. This was a lesson, he realized. Not just for the child, but for everyone around him. The test weeks passed. The war raged elsewhere, and rumors of Elias's actions spread across both human and alien lines. Some humans called him a traitor. Others quietly admired his courage. But his bond with the alien child had drawn attention from Commander Salyra herself. She decided it was time to test him. She sent a small group of her trusted officers to the human base, disguised as envoys, to observe Elias's actions. Their mission was simple: report whether he was trustworthy, whether his care for her child was genuine, or whether he would betray it. When they arrived, the child recognized them immediately and cried out in alarm. Elias rushed to calm it, speaking softly, moving his hands in soothing gestures. He shielded the child with his body, gently pushing the aliens away without aggression. The observing officers exchanged looks. They whispered among themselves, surprised at his restraint and courage. He did not attack, yet he did not allow harm to come to the child. Salyra's report came later. She read the words slowly, almost in disbelief. The human had passed her test, not by skill or weapon, but by heart. A difficult choice. Elias knew the time would come when his bond with the child would be tested more directly. So far, the humans had tolerated his care for the alien child, but tolerance could shift into anger or fear. Some officers had already begun plotting ways to separate them. Elias thought about what it would mean if the child were taken from him. He had fought battles, survived firestorms, and dodged death countless times. But this small alien being had captured something deeper: his loyalty, his compassion, his belief that life mattered. And now, a stranger from another world, Salyra, stood silently in the wings, watching and waiting for the right moment to claim both her child and the man who had protected it. Elias knew that whatever happened next would not be decided by weapons or orders. It would be decided by trust, courage, and honor. The human soldiers react. Not all humans agreed with Elias. One evening, a small group of soldiers approached him quietly. "Captain, you can't keep it forever," one whispered. "The general is losing patience. Orders might change." The child, "It's not yours to protect." Elias shook his head. "Maybe not. But right now it is, and I will not abandon it." Another soldier frowned. "And if Salyra comes herself? What then?" Elias's expression was calm, almost thoughtful. "Then we will face that together. Not as enemies, but as humans who choose what is right." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. His calm certainty unsettled them. For the first time, some wondered if maybe he was right. Maybe morality mattered more than orders. The alien perspective far away, Sayalira stood on the bridge of her ship, holding a small, glowing replica of her child, a charm that reminded her of what she protected. She studied the reports, watched the humans' reactions, and realized something she had not expected. Elias was teaching others, even human soldiers, a new kind of courage. Her own officers questioned her. "Commander, why risk this? Why watch him?" She looked at the small replica, her eyes softening. "Because he is different. He understands honor in a way none of us taught him. He may be human, but he acts with a heart that could change everything." Her voice was quiet, almost to herself. "And I will see it with my own eyes." The bond strengthens back at the base. Elias and the child shared a quiet moment in the training yard. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the field. The child ran to Elias, holding his hand tightly. "You are safe," Elias whispered. "Nothing will harm you while I am here." The child's glowing patterns pulsed brighter, almost like a heartbeat of trust. Elias smiled, knowing that the bond between them was not just survival. It was trust, love, and hope. Somewhere, far above them, Sayalira watched, planning her next move. Elias did not know what the future held, but he understood one thing clearly. In a war built on hatred and fear, compassion was a weapon more powerful than any gun. The battlefield was quiet, though the tension hung heavy in the air. The sun was beginning to rise, casting pale light over the shattered ruins that stretched for miles. Both human and alien forces had paused, sensing something different in the air. Word had spread quickly. The child of Commander Sayalira had been saved by a human, and that human, Captain Elias, was still alive. For most soldiers, it was impossible to understand. How could one man, standing in the middle of chaos and war, have the courage to protect the child of their enemy? Yet here he was, standing between two worlds, neither fully human nor fully alien, yet somehow connected to both. Elias stood on a small hill overlooking the ruins, the child clinging to his side. His armor was scratched and worn, but his posture was steady. The soldiers around him watched quietly, unsure whether to obey orders or follow their instincts. Some remembered the battles fought, the lives lost, yet they could not deny the truth. Elias had acted from a courage that went beyond fear or hatred. The arrival of the mother. The ground trembled with the approach of alien forces. Commander Sayalira rode at the front, her armor gleaming in the morning light. Her troops followed, disciplined and silent, yet the eyes of every alien soldier were fixed on Elias. When Sayalira reached him, she dismounted gracefully, holding the child close. The small alien looked up at her briefly, then back at Elias as if caught between two worlds. The mother's expression was fierce, but her gaze softened when she saw her child safe and alive. "You saved my child," she said, her voice low but filled with authority. "I did what I had to do," Elias replied simply. "Nothing more." Sayalira's eyes studied him for a long moment. Her hand rested lightly on the child's back, but her attention never left Elias. "You risked everything," she said. "Not for orders, not for glory, but for life. You honor blood with your own body." Elias nodded. "I only did what any human should." For the first time, Sayalira allowed herself a small smile. It was not a smile of war, but of respect. She stepped closer. "Then hear me now. By the laws of my people, the one who saves life, even at the risk of death, is bound to that life. You are claimed by my blood. You are protector, and no one, human or alien, may harm you." The words echoed across the ruins, reaching both human and alien soldiers. Whispers spread quickly. Some humans stiffened, unsure of what to do. Some aliens stepped forward with surprise, but none dared to oppose her. Elias felt the weight of her words, yet he remained calm. "I do not seek to belong to anyone," he said. "I only want to protect what is innocent." Sayalira studied him again, her black eyes searching for doubt. She found none. She nodded slowly.
"Then you are mine as protector of my child by choice and by honor."
"Anyone who challenges this will face both my wrath and the truth of your courage." The soldiers' reaction on both sides, the tension broke slowly. Human soldiers whispered among themselves. Some felt anger at what seemed a betrayal. Others felt admiration, understanding that Elias had done something greater than following orders. A young soldier approached him cautiously. "Captain, are you really going with her?" Elias looked down at the child, who clutched his hand and blinked up at him. I am going where I am needed, where I can keep life safe. The soldier nodded, seeing the determination in his captain's eyes. Then, I understand. You've always been different, Captain. I hope it works out. Even the general standing stiffly nearby could not find words. He had witnessed bravery, strategy, and leadership, but never a choice like this. Elias had shown the strength of humanity not through weapons but through mercy. A walk between two worlds. Elias walked slowly beside Sayalira, the child between them. Soldiers on both sides kept their distance, unsure whether to interfere or follow. The wind blew gently through the ruins, carrying the scent of smoke and dust. It was quiet, but the silence was not empty. It was filled with tension, respect, and a fragile hope. The child tugged at Elias's hand, then at Sayalira's. The mother lifted the child into her arms once more, then looked at Elias. "You will come with us now," she said. "Not as prisoner, not as enemy, but as protector. Will you?" Elias looked down at the child, then at her. He nodded. "I will protect life wherever it takes me. That is all I ask." The child reached up and touched Elias's face, a silent gesture of trust. Salira's expression softened further, and for a moment the warrior mother seemed almost human, vulnerable, and relieved. The peaceful march as they walked through the battlefield, both armies watched. Human soldiers lowered their weapons, unsure of what to do. Alien forces did the same, recognizing their commander's authority. Elias felt the eyes of thousands upon him, but he did not falter. He walked steadily, the child safe in the arms of the mother he had protected. In the distance, the ruins of the city stretched endlessly. Smoke rose from destroyed buildings. For years, hatred had grown in this place. But now, one man's courage and mercy began to change it. Some soldiers whispered quietly, telling their comrades what they had seen. Others stared silently, realizing that maybe humanity's greatest weapon was not guns, strategy, or armor. It was the heart. A new understanding later. In the alien command ship, Sayalira held the child close and looked at Elias. "You are different from any human I have known," she said. "You see life differently. That is why I claimed you. Not because of blood or law, but because of truth." Elias nodded. "I only did what any human should. Protect the innocent. Respect life. That is all." She studied him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Perhaps there is hope for our worlds yet." Elias glanced at the child glowing softly in her arms. The small life that had caused this impossible journey now symbolized something larger. A bridge between humans and aliens. A sign that even in war, compassion could survive. A moment of recognition. Back on the battlefield, both armies watched as Elias and Salira left together. The child's small hand waved to the soldiers, a silent gesture that carried more meaning than words ever could. For some humans, it was a lesson they would never forget. For some aliens, it was proof that their own values of honor and family could coexist with respect for others. Elias walked calmly, knowing that he had done what mattered most. Not victories, not medals, not orders, but saving a life, protecting innocence, and showing that humanity could rise above hate. Even Salira, the feared commander, understood. She had claimed him not as a weapon, not as a soldier, but as a protector, and for the first time in years she felt hope for the future. The final bond as they reached a quiet hill overlooking the ruins. Elias paused. The child ran ahead, exploring the open space, its glowing patterns flickering happily. Salira watched, her arms relaxed now, and turned to Elias. "You have changed more than just this child," she said softly. "You have changed me. Perhaps our people can learn something from this." "If we survive," Elias smiled faintly. "Then let's make sure we do." The sun rose higher, spilling light across the ruins, illuminating both human and alien soldiers in the distance. The battlefield was still scarred, but in that light, hope began to bloom, not through victory in war, but through courage, mercy, and a simple human choice that had defied hatred. Elias looked at the child, glowing softly in the morning sun, and felt a sense of purpose deeper than anything he had ever known. He had risked everything, and in return, he had gained something far greater: trust, respect, and the knowledge that humanity, through compassion, could shine brighter than any weapon. The child ran back to him, giggling in its alien tongue. Salira smiled, watching the small life she had almost lost. Elias knelt, allowing the child to climb onto his shoulders. He held on tightly, feeling the warmth of trust and life.